Welcome to our Influencers in Accounting podcast, one of 5 going out as part of the Accounting Influencers podcast network, which shows going out every day of the working week to accounting professionals all over the world in 150 countries. And in a part 2, we have Bryan Williams here from Hockey Stick Advisory. Bryan, good day to you.
Hi, Rob. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Bryan, we had you last time talking about strategic partnerships, a wonderful episode with some great insights for accountants and the ecosystem that surrounds them and how they can be more intentional with the partnerships and why it's the future. And this is very much part of your world, isn't it? Just explain briefly to our listeners what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Hockey Stick Advisory, my role is as the founder is to help companies build out their partnership ecosystem muscle. And so effectively, they don't have to grow it alone. And so whether that's building up partnerships across marketing, comms, operations, alongside their sales team, alongside their product and enhancing or filling gaps they don't have, I'm helping companies go faster with a partnership approach.
And you've got previous in this, as we say in the UK, a previous criminal record. We say he's got previous, but you've got previous because you did this with Xero, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. So I led Xero's ecosystem across Australia and New Zealand for 5 years, and I led a team there helping connect more applications of a Xero platform across financial services, small business apps, and bookkeeping and accounting apps to run more efficient firms.
And tell us more about your experience building Xero's app community. It's massive, isn't it, Bryan? And you chose to focus on that, really build it out.
Yeah, so community was a really strong enabler for us to be able to reach scale and to be able to go faster and do more. And as you get bigger and want to offer more, you actually have to need to move from a one-to-one to a one-to-many approach. But not only a one-to-many, you actually, the benefit of community, which we'll get to, you're actually able to connect the community and the many, which I spoke of, to help enable each other. And that's the power of community, of what it can bring together. If you picture any football club or sporting club of any sort, or any sort of whatever your interests are, which keep you busy, it's surrounded by a community, and the collective group that you're interested in, or the club itself, is all better by everyone contributing across the board.
I'm thinking of back in the days before social media and digital, a community would be a neighborhood. You would know the people that lived on your street, or maybe the people that you were at work with, or maybe you went to a social club or a pub or a bar, or you had a common interest. But community is different now. How would you define it in your dictionary of life and business, Bryan?
Yeah, so communities are a collective group of individuals or organizations all together for a common cause. Right. And so what you're effectively trying to do is build an army of advocates, of people who are engaged, who log in, who are all working towards a similar mission or cause of what your potentially your software or your firm can offer ahead. And so the community itself is an extension of your sales team, of your organization, is able to drive forward the mission of what you're trying to achieve, as well as help them win, or help them achieve what they're looking to do or aspire towards, or whatever they follow, which they choose to.
And for accounting firms, is community relevant? I do look on LinkedIn and see that a certain firm, a corporate brand, has this many followers. I'm not sure if accounting firms are on Facebook so much, where you would envisage communities live, but how important is it for accounting firms to think about community?
Yeah, it is across a bunch of touch points. So to start off with, most accountants would go to conferences of various sorts throughout the year. They're effectively a community gathering of information and sharing ideas. And the
so
magic
that's a
from
community of peers, perhaps, or
the
partnership ecosystem you mentioned in the last episode, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. Or for their small business clients or clients alike, they're all going to be members of associations, of collective groups. It might be members of subgroups. If they're located in a certain town, they're going to be members of various community groups together at some stage. And so if you're able to offer more to your clients, to go above and beyond, to offer white glove service, or really absolutely nail your value proposition of whatever you offer today, not only are you part of community in various touch points, your clients are also going to be part of those communities as well. And so how can you have your number one fan in a sporting environment, and how can you build an army of those alongside you, which is able to sort of bring forward information? You know, the days gone by where used to be telephone support, and easy to access people, and it moved towards online support or offshore support, which is typically frowned upon or not great experience. And today, a lot of tech companies are actually community first, beyond actually trying to go find the answer. So you can go ask, whether it's a Facebook group or a Slack group or wherever the audience is like, hey, I'm trying to do this. Who wants to, how can I get some help? And the community will get involved and actually help engage with that. And so there's an increasing many touch points. In the US, they're calling it community-led growth. It's been around for generations in various touch points. It's now got a label or a sticker on it, but it's definitely coming to the forefront as a strategic asset.
Community-led growth. It sounds like the perfect storm. I'm just thinking of Apple, and you mentioned a great example of Apple in the last episode on partnerships, but Apple were the first company I saw to have evangelists.
Yes.
And this army of advocates and fans and champions that were pure Apple endorsers. And this community-led growth is growing this list. It's the perfect storm. Why is it now? Why is it happening like this, Bryan?
Yeah, so interesting. Last week in Boston, HubSpot held their annual conference. HubSpot been global leading CRM, amongst other things, of a suite of services they offer. And the main theme coming out of that conference was community. And the reason why they sort of talk to the power of it now is that we're increasingly disconnected as we're increasingly connected. And so we're in a world where the answer is always just on a phone or a search away. We don't have to ask anyone for the question anymore. It's just at our fingertips. And so the community is actually just, human essence at heart of engaging, bringing people together for a common cause. And so as we spend more time on devices, as we spend more time having information or not needing to, and, all of us in various places around the world have been in lockdowns in the recent years, or restricted from travel or getting to the office as much as we'd like, or we should maybe. Community is actually able to bring all that together and keep that magic of human connection.
So accountants themselves will be members of communities and networks. It seems appropriate for them to build a community of their own client base. So those clients come together, and the common element is that accountant or that firm. So talk to us about some of the benefits of developing a community, Bryan.
Yeah, so we spoke about advocacy and having that sort of flywheel approach of, like, the more those people talk about it, then you'll get some more word of mouth. And, from my previous role at Xero, it was always, I'd chat to accountants and bookkeepers across the region. They'd say, oh, word of mouth is still strong. And so how do you amplify your community to be able to bring in some of those word of mouth sort of referrals to come in? So there's opportunities to go there. It's opportunities to sort of bring in new audience around it. One of the metrics to measure a community is that you kind of want your community growth to grow higher than your natural rate of new customers which you've got coming in. So you're growing your audience base effectively and who's around it. Also, if your clients or the community you build and grow are spending time in amongst your community of whatever that is, or even think about the where you spend your time, whether the footy club or like that as well. It's energy, effort, and information in a digital age where there's way too much information for us to consume, that you're focusing on your community and not elsewhere. And so there's an opportunity cost for people's attention, literally. And if they're able to be engaged with you wherever, and in an environment wherever they are, you're able to bring them forward, but in your interest, but also helping them win together and not elsewhere.
I love the idea of building a community beyond your own client base, because that speaks to your pipeline, doesn't it? That's future business opportunities right there.
Yeah, that's right. And so it's people you don't have to go and chase, because you've already brought them into the sort of the funnel effectively. And then you've got these advocates in there talking about how good it is and helping solving it. And they want to be a part of it, right?
Yeah. You help companies build community as a strategic asset. Talk to us about how important that is, because that's an increasingly recognized term, isn't it?
Yeah, increasingly. And I think in the current economic conditions, with increasingly limited resource and how you can do more with less, there's pressures on CAC, to cost to acquire customers. There's still big targets on top line growth to go about it. And so how can you protect, retain, and grow your current clients today, or make sure that they're with you for the long haul, that they're looked after, that they're in regular contact, that they are thinking about you and talking about you. It's a lot of your marketing efforts done already. And so it is a strategic asset which companies can build, foster, and water effectively, to keep the sort of the longevity of the business growing through and keeping those clients talking about you.
And presumably with an asset, Bryan, you can sell it as well.
That's right. Yeah. And we've seen a number of those examples, especially in the US market. There's one podcast in particular, the Millennials podcast, that got acquired by HubSpot after having over 1 million customers listen to their podcast, engage in their community, active a part of it. And so there's 1 million customers which HubSpot just kind of bought. They bought the company, but they got the customers and the clients. And they keep it going, they foster it and water it. But what an amazing way. And there's been a few acquisitions like that. And it's effectively what it is in the modern days. It's the very top of the funnel. You've brought clients in, you've got them engaged, you're talking about them, you're able to talk about how your services around it, and to be able to progress that way. And so it's increasingly being an asset which a lot of are investing in.
Well, when we get to 1 million listeners of our podcast, I'll give HubSpot a call and see how that conversation goes. What about the accountants?
Yeah, sounds good.
What about the accountants listening, Bryan, that say, well, I've already got a network. Isn't that community? I've already got some clients. I occasionally bring them together for the odd advisory board. Is that a community? And if not, how would they turn that into a community? How did it get started?
Yeah, so I suppose it's the question to start off with is how engaged and what audiences and, and where do your clients hang out? And so that's where the community should be based around it. You want to make it easy and frictionless. And then you need to sort of have a bit of a strategy and think around like, well, how do you want to reach out? How often do you want to be in touch around it? Because you're going to get good, bad, and ugly feedback, but it's going to help you grow and make you stand by your principles, your values, and also the services you deliver to take forward. So it's a really good accountability piece. And so to start off with, you don't have to be massive or have a massive following. You can start off with having a think about who to call. If you're going to build an advisory board for your business today, who would you lean on around it? And if you're looking for the core clients who really love your services or are happy to give you a review or talk about you or have referred people, get them involved actively to help spur it. And they're the ones who you want to be effectively the power users and be answering questions in there to be able to, provide feedback, to be able to come along to events if you choose that route, organize components, produce content, and start to build it from there. And it's an investment over time that you want to keep growing and outstripping your current growth, and something that works alongside other initiatives or marketing and sales efforts to go with.
What's in it for a community member, Bryan, to be part of, say, an accountant's community or user base or fan base?
Yeah, so you need to have clear objectives of why they would hang out there, and you don't want them to sort of have a look and then just not come back. Yeah. And so it needs to be engaging. You need to have it, make sure it's a safe environment where they feel they can be vulnerable and ask questions or around it. You also want to create an environment where they can contribute and help others as well and feel part of it. And so you're effectively building the inner sanctum of a footy club style environment where everyone feels they can be a part of something, they can add value, they feel valued, they learn something, they might upskill, cross-skill, connect with others, be able to ask more questions. It's a live, living, breathing networking opportunity that you need to harness and grow.
Yeah.
And so when you're sort of looking through mapping around what does it look like, you need to think what is in it and define that, Rob, and lead with that. Like, why would someone come and why would they stay? And would they stay in 12 months or, what's in it for them? And so you got to grow that over time.
Yeah, I love that. And as a former high school maths teacher, I love spreadsheets, and thinking of our accounting audience, they love the metrics, they love the numbers, they love the data. Are there KPIs out there where we can measure the impact of a community? Yeah,
so the common one is community members over time, numbers of posts, numbers of engagements to go with it, the positivity. You can measure sentiment and NPS really easily around to go with it. You want to look at and cross-reference against your current business sales growth and sort of being the accountants and the data and the reports. You want to sort of overlay what is the community sentiment or growth against your current sales growth, and what does that look like as a trend line over time. And the idea is to build and foster it, like in the same way you build and foster and grow your business.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm just thinking back in the day, a community would meet in a pub or a bar. It would be in person. But when you talk about metrics like the number of posts and the number of engagement, a community needs a place to live, doesn't it? How do you go about choosing where your community will reside?
Yeah, so you should just choose wherever your community hangs out today, so it's easy and frictionless.
Be
If
where
they're a
they
bunch of
are.
Yeah, where they are. If you're a bunch of Facebook users, make it easy for them on Facebook. The crypto world live in various Discord, Telegraph, or other components where they're able to spin up projects, ideas, and initiatives to go with it. And so wherever that community is, use the relevant tech or connectivity to sort of bring that to life.
Are there any rules about moderating or controlling or policing a community? Because once you let them go and you unleash the beast, if you like, who knows what happens in there?
Yeah, very much so. It is recommended to have a community manager or someone who's in charge.
A
But you also don't want
moderator,
a person. Yeah, you also don't want a receptionist style person who gets tagged all the time. And what about this? And what about that? It kind of becomes like a hotline number to go with it. And so with that, you would have rules of engagements in order, and potentially qualifying criteria in order to enter and be a part of it. And you'll have some governance to go with it around what's acceptable behavior and what's not, and be very clear and uphold that in the same way you've got company values to go with it. Additionally, some of those power users and advocates and those who regularly engage, give them the power to be, if not admins, moderators. So they can start to control the narrative to go with it. But with the idea, like an organization has a culture, and which is a living heartbeat, which is never said and done. It needs to be fed and watered and shape the future of the group of what it can and can't be. You don't want it to be a bunch of complaints area or shortcut areas of complaints or upsets or components. You want to be able to share ideas, add value to each and every one member, and make it a safe place where everybody can learn, grow, and prosper.
I like that. And your power users, as you call them, they can model acceptable behavior, can't they? So they set the tone.
Yeah, that's right. As well as produce content or spur ideas or start debate of like constructive discussion around best practice or what not to do or how to save time or technology they like, etc. There's a whole range of areas that they can sort of really moderate in its essence.
Yeah. We've all seen communities where people have tried to get the plane off the ground. And I don't know if you know this, Bryan, but an aeroplane takes about a third of its fuel to get a mile into the air. And just getting that beast off the ground with all that tonnage, it's hard work. It's a lot of heavy lifting. And a lot of communities have started with the best of intention, the best of ideas, and even a few good advocates, but it's just faded out. We know in podcasts, very few podcasts get beyond 12 episodes. So there's that initial intention and momentum, but it dies out. So have you got any tips for activating a community and building it up and keeping it going?
Yeah, so there's a few stages there, and well articulated, Rob. I like the plane analogy. I suppose to kick off with, you need to have some sort of launch components or get some of those early users to get going. And so if you can bring in a Halo member or someone who can attract a large audience to start off with, is a great sort of igniter and catalyst to sort of get going. Beyond there, to keep it going, it's about adding value and relevance to the audience of what you're bringing in. You also don't want to grow a community of the wrong type of people, or people who aren't going to engage and be passengers to go with it. There's a bit of a rule in communities that it's about 95-5 rule, not the 80-20 that we all know.
Oh, yeah.
They're more that it might be 5% of people who are going to be ongoing, moderating, adding content, Reddit, Facebook groups, any groups that you're in currently. You could think of probably a few people top of mind who are always commenting around that as well. And so you want to make sure you steer a narrative of adding value ongoing, that the content's rich enough, it's covering enough rich enough content, crowdsource a bunch of feedback. Is this relevant to you? What else would you like to hear? Go out to the audience of what you're doing. And so you do able to produce a flywheel. They're telling you what you want to hear, you're delivering on it, you're engaging with it, you're keeping it interactive, and your time and time again. And then they're effectively becoming members of your footy club beyond someone to log in and sort of checking out your community and then sort of just leaving or sitting in the background idle. That's what you don't want.
How can you be a good community member?
Yeah, I think playing by the rules of governance of what the community is about, making sure that it is relevant. If it's not relevant to you, you're not going to spend much time there. You'll just drop off by default, right? That makes sense. And so You see it on LinkedIn a lot. There's a lot of passengers or people sort of just fly along, but why not comment, engage, or ask questions to go with component and spur debate or question components or give compliments accordingly. So just get involved. You might learn something or you might meet some new people.
We have the Accounting Influencers Roundtable, which is a small community of people that sell to and through accountants and serve the accounting profession. You know about this group. And we have identified lurkers and likers. So the lurkers just hang around in the background. They don't do too much. They don't engage too much. They don't show up too much. But then there are the likers that will put a like and will put a comment and will participate. And isn't it strange, Bryan, that they're the ones that get the most out of the group and create the most commercial opportunities and the best partnerships?
Yeah, and they're often the most informed as well, Rob. It's interesting that there's some people are happy to participate and be part of, and others just want to be informed. It's nearly, but in that environment, they're probably not also getting as much out of it if they did participate, because in that instance, they're just consuming. They're not asking questions. They're watching a TV news bulletin and just sitting back and watching it. But if they were able to ask back, and it is very much a two-way conversation opportunity, with a lot of people able to provide questions and answers and debate, they would probably also equally get a lot more out of it.
Yeah.
So anyone, if you are a lurker or a liker, I encourage you just to get involved, ask a few more questions, connect with a few more people, and broaden and deepen your network.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you one more question with the crystal ball in a minute, Bryan, but we will put your contact details, your bio, into our show notes so people can reach out to you, because you help companies and firms build out their communities and their partnership networks as strategic assets, don't you?
Yeah, that's right, Rob. It's one of the services I sort of offer, and I've seen the benefits come to life, and it's been something that I've previously had success building Xero's app ecosystem down here in the APAC region. So it's something I want to help other companies bring to life and invest in. And the whole space down here, community managers in tech weren't a thing just not that long ago, and now there's a whole flurry of them. There's a group in Australia with over 120 community managers. It's a community manager group of community managers, Rob. And it's crazy. It's only sort of been going a year, but the appetite of it, and this wouldn't exist a few years ago, and I'm sure it's going to keep ramping up. And so, it's people aren't doing it because it's a nice to have. It's a great way to connect and grow with their customer base.
Well, that's insane at what is happening right now. What do you think is going to be happening with communities in 5 years if you and I are having this conversation?
Well, I think the interconnectivity, you can't hide anymore. And so everyone's accessible at any time, even right now, across various mediums, sources, connectivity, chats, or whatever. And so the interconnectivity of it is only going to amplify. Low code, no code, the technology is getting better. And so everyone's got a customizable tech stack in their pocket around it. And so I think the intentionality of how people spend their time is going to magnify in time. And at the heart of it, it's the communities which connect people to go about it. Like, when was the last time you went to a restaurant in a new city, which you didn't ask a colleague that was in town, a friend who had been there before, or sort of someone had recommended it, rather than just a walk and go find somewhere for dinner, or when you're going on holidays to a destination, or asking friends around where it's good to go about it. You've got no idea of what they recommend, but that you trust them. And so it's the communities which empowers that. And so I think it's going to shape decision-making increasingly. And the fact that the likes of HubSpot's leading with it at their global conference is reaffirming it's not in 5 years' time, it's right now.
And I was just thinking as a final point, Bryan, here in this fascinating conversation, that with the challenge of the pandemic and people getting isolated socially and digitally, now is a great time to be a part of something. We don't want to be out of the loop. Accounting firms belong to networks and associations. Individuals belong to professional institutes and organizations. We plug into communities. There's a FOMO, isn't there, as well? You don't want to miss out. You don't want to be uninformed. You want to be able to peer over the garden wall and see what other people are doing. Whether it's a church or a neighborhood community, there's WhatsApp groups now, and there's neighborhood Facebook groups. Community is happening.
Yeah, 100% across the board. And they're micro communities as well. They're often small groups of a subset of like-minded people. And whatever your challenges are or whatever your success is, there's going to be a lot of other people out there in similar environments who are also going through the same thing. And through a community, you're able to bring that together, share ideas, and help everyone win, and find your people accordingly, right? And so we encourage, once again, the lurkers and likers to start commenting, reaching out, get involved, and benefit of the opportunities which exist.
And quickly, Bryan, why should accounting professionals care?
Because you can grow beyond of word of mouth from now on, whether it's for yourself and your firm and to learn to be able to grow forward, but you can also help your clients and connect them into communities or empower them to be advocates within their communities to help your business grow. If your word of mouth has been your traditional method, then why don't you pour fire on it, offering more to your clients, help them and find out where they hang out, and your business is in good stead for the future.
Yeah, I'd add to that. Accountants are always being asked to step up with their commercial acumen and their business awareness and their market intelligence, and communities is a great way to glean all of that from the people that know you well. Bryan Williams, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much for your passion and your expertise on this topic of community today.
Thanks, Rob. Been great to chat.